Take it away, Hugh.
Yeah, that's
Okay, I'm Hugh from Kinetek. I have the pleasure of being joined by Jon Kane, who's made 3 films with Godfrey Reggio, and Godfrey himself, who's joining us today from Santa Fe in his studio.
From the lair.
From the lair, yes.
Closer so you can hear you.
Uh, my mic is almost in my mouth, so I can't really do much more about that. Is there a vision mix? Oh, that's it. That's it. I'm not used to singing, John. So anyway, I wanted to host this conversation. I saw Godfrey, John, Steven Soderbergh have conversations about this film in New York City last year, and it's very interesting to talk about a film like this, talk about a filmmaker like this, because this isn't the film. This isn't the kind of film that you're used to seeing. It's not. It's not. It doesn't even feel American in some kind of a way.
It should be said that the film was actually designed for children.
Yes, it's a kids movie, but it's
But
not.
that memo never actually got out. So here we are with a room full of adults.
And so, Godfrey, before I delve into the how of the production process and mechanics of this film, I wanted to begin by asking about the why. What compelled you in the second decade of the 21st century to make a film like this?
good question. Comedy is the hardest form of drama. I'm not talking about slapstick. I'm talking about the odd one in. I'm talking about question. Umberto Eco wrote a book called The Name of the Rose. It's about the 2 existential twins, tragedy and humor. We have the tragic text of Aristotle, but we don't have the humor text. And according to Umberto Eco and others, it exists in the secret library of the Vatican. Why? Because humor is dangerous. Humor, Baudelaire says, is the stigmata of original sin. It's very intense. So humor was taken away because it questions authority. And our soul is riveted in humor. That's who we are. We can see the incongruity of those we live with. If you're smart, yourself, and everything around you, especially today.
Godfrey, it's interesting that you bring up the name of the rose, the Vatican, etc., because most people know you as a filmmaker, but you also spent 14 years of your life as a Catholic monk and have, for your entire life, worked with people on the margins of society, such as street gangs and kind of doing that amazing side of Christianity that doesn't get talked about very often, like helping the poor and the disenfranchised.
Right.
So I'm wondering how much of your motivation stems from
I'll tell you,
a religious.
when I was 14, I left home in New Orleans, La Dolce Vita, and entered the Middle Ages, a Roman Catholic pontifical order of monks. The first order of monks without priests, because our task was not only poverty, chastity, and obedience, but teaching the poor gratuitously, freely. I took final vows at 25 in 1965, and in 1968 I was exclaustrated from the audience, from the order, with a papal bull for really teaching the poor gratuitously. The further you get away from the spirit of something, it becomes vestigial. So all of my work, including all the films I've done, has been to teach the poor gratuitously. I include myself among the poor. We're all poor. We don't know how poor we are. We're addicted. We deny it. The gizmo is our way. We have attention spans of all of 2 seconds, all the way up to 8.5 seconds. It's, we're in trouble. So to teach people is what I came here to do. I didn't start out doing that, but I was thrown out of the order. And when you're thrown out, you become an apostle. You become an apostle. That's what apostle is. He's thrown out to spread the word. So I spread the word. I'm a Nazarene.
And so Godfrey, like I can see that in your films. I can see that, kind of that questioning and the philosopher as well as the artist at play in that work. And this particular film, Once Within a Time, to me it feels like an extension of your work, but also a departure. When I think about the Qatsi trilogy, it always makes me harken back to Soviet silent cinema, like Dziga Vertov's Man with a Movie Camera in the 1920s. And it feels like with this film, you're going back even further. You're going back to George Méliès in 1902 with A Trip to the Moon, which is actually in there. And it does feel to me that you're moving forward and going back right to the beginning of when people were trying to work out what we could do with cinema, working out the language.
Right. Well, let me put it this way. All endings lie in beginnings. So this film is not only made with children, but it's made for children of all ages, like the people in the gallery here today. I'm told, I can't see you, I hope I do at some point, that you're older, but there's a child within you. That's what it's all about. I work with Jon Kane, Soderbergh. The average age of the crew, 30 or so. Mara is 27 years old. So we were able to do something where we depended on ourselves, not on the algorithms and the artificial intelligence that surrounds us all, that is out of control, that's been here for probably 50 years, and we only get to see it now, and it'll double, and it's exponential in its capacity. So this is really the big boo-hoo AI for me.
From the beginning, Godfrey wanted on this film the idea was to make a film that communicated the idea of the past, seeing the future through the lens of the past.
Yes.
So we studied the hand-painted films, the late 1800s, early 1900s, for the style of the film. So that was always the idea, is to make this film that felt like a relic that was found, in the dust in the future. As a way to make kind of an interesting lens for children, really, to see this information.
And there's a fantastic making of documentary about how this film was put together. It's incredible. It was
but it's not a documentary film. This is not a documentary film.
No. I was talking about the
documentary about the making of the film.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what he was talking about.
Yeah, Mara's
the director.
documentary.
Bravo.
Yeah. And that making of is on the DVD that's here as well. But the process of making this film, did it all happen in your studio in Red Hook, New York?
Yeah, we decided. Okay. First of all, this film was under development for 7 years, Godfrey.
7 years.
Yeah, and originally we were going to do it as a 3D IMAX film, hand painted. Anyway, the reality of how are we going to get this vision filmed turned into, all right, if we can do this entire film in our studio, which is not nearly as big as this room. It's a third of this room. We could do it for the budget that we had. So we decided to do the whole film in miniature and using all the tricks that we know with computers and cameras and everything else. So yeah, we did the entire film in one small room.
And that's kind of amazing because, you know, you're using miniatures, you're using green screen. There is even a little bit of generative AI in there when Mike Tyson opens his mouth.
Yeah, a few places, there are a few backgrounds and things.
Yeah. But in general, it is the old-fashioned like production
Yeah, we
process.
made the film by hand. Yeah.
That's amazing. And kind of like, you know, if you look back at silent movies, there was a total anarchic freedom going on until microphones came in. And then everybody's standing still and there's a plant and that's where the microphone is, you know? So it's like prior to that, people were hanging off skyscrapers and hanging off the back of cars and all this kind of craziness and artistic freedom was going on. And then the technology kind of limited.
100%. And the technology we used was really to put the pieces together. But for example, with the fire, there's a lot of fire in the movie. We decided early on that we didn't want to you can make artificial fire, you know, using many, many different tools. But, you know, we used real fire and real water and actual miniature sets that moved and real people. And a lot of the stuff also was in camera, even the layered stuff. We're using a rear projection screen and the set, and of course the people are put in later, but we did as much as we could in camera. Yeah.
And Godfrey, you're not showing up with a movie script. You're not showing up with like a finished document.
Yes, I did.
Was it adhered to the whole way through the process?
Yes, amazingly so. As Jon said, we had a long time to prepare.
Okay.
I spent 7 months in this room and 8 months in this room and 16 months in Red Hook, realizing what had been written. And I must tell you now that I'm not a filmmaker, I'm more of a graphic designer. So I have to work with people like Jon and Philip and the whole crew that are more talented, Greer, the people more talented than I, but who can realize, who are able to grasp the concept that this film has. So
Yeah,
the concept is, let's look at it from the point of view of Homer. Old leaves cast upon the ground by the wind, new leaves the greening forest bears when spring comes in. So this is the children. And as I said, you don't have to be 7 years old to be a child. You could be 90 years old and a child. And the people I work with are all children, from Philip Glass to Jon Kane, etc.
And Godfrey, the children in the film, they're not coming from some kind of drama school?
No, New York is full of children whose mothers usually, seldom fathers, push them into doing adverts and all of that. We didn't do that. We took Mara organized finding kids. We're in New York. We have kids from all over the world. So kids that didn't have socialized answers, who weren't in the game, who gave us an authentic response to whatever we asked for, because we had to create a medium that allowed us to see those authentic responses. So everything you saw in there, we didn't tell them to do this or that. They were authentic. That's why they worked. They weren't socialized.
The children in the film are wonderful. I wanted to ask about, in your ongoing collaboration with Philip Glass, how does that process work? Is it images and then music, or does it vary, or how does the collaboration?
No, it's one medium motivates the other. Usually I spend as much money, or the crew does, on the music as we do on the visual. Let me put it to you this way. The image is constructed, engineered from the aural and the visual. One without the other is like a dawn without a day. So what I'm trying to say is that we created this symbiotic relationship between these, and it allowed it to come together.
The way it works is we start making the pictures before Philip makes any music. And then at a certain point, once we have sort of the language and enough stuff that gives an idea of what the film's going to look like and how it feels, Philip comes and spends a lot of time doing what Godfrey calls marinating. He marinates in that we shillies just with no sound, hours and hours of things that we've made, little, in this case, tests. It's not dailies because we don't have dailies or anything like this, but tests and various assemblages of certain parts of the film. And when he feels that he's marinated enough, he goes away and starts to make demos. Then we get some, just piano on the piano. We get some of those back and we start to play a little bit with the picture and the demos. Then he comes and he sees the demos up against the picture. So we're writing, he's not scoring to the picture. The music and the pictures happen in tandem.
Okay. I was here last week. It was the first time I saw Koyaanisqatsi live with the Philip Glass Ensemble. So it was the first time I saw the two come together in the same room, you know, and with a live audience. It was
Intense.
It was intense and kind of amazing. And watching that film again, especially the last chapter, because I'm so focused on this intersection of technology and cinema, that the whole last chapter is so prescient when we're, you know, the microchips, and I know that's brought out again throughout the series, particularly the third film. Where it's mostly digital and
Koyaanisqatsi,
where it's mostly digital and computer graphics.
That was the first film that I worked on with Godfrey. Koyaanisqatsi, yeah.
So Godfrey, you've been very prescient in commenting on this through visual poetry for decades.
It goes beyond that. There in every film that I've been involved with, the three films, Koyaanisqatsi, Visitors, and this film, things happened in the making of the film that suddenly happened in the real world. So for example, Nakoi we were editing in 2000, and we had a shot in the film that we were debating whether we should use, which was a shot, it was like a CG shot of a helicopter view of Lower Manhattan and the trade towers and a bomb blowing up the trade towers. By the way, our studio was about 5 blocks from the World Trade Towers at the time. And that weekend, we left the debate like, I don't know, is it too much, whatever. That weekend is when 9/11 happened. And we couldn't go back to the studio for months. It was a war zone. This film, there's a shot in the film of the sort of the Muslim lady and Orthodox kind of Jewish lady, you know, praying at the same time. Days late, I mean, not that that's a brand new thing, but days after we shot that and put it together, the massive blow up in the Middle East, it started this whole thing. So he's always like, you know, I'm always ducking when we're doing a thing because it's like, is this going to happen tomorrow? You know.
And John, I think you forgot to mention the whole section with the waxwork of Donald Trump. That's in
that too. We had Donald Trump in Koyaanisqatsi, a wax figure. Yep. Before anyone was thinking about that.
So yeah, there's a strange
all the balloons coming down as if he was being inaugurated.
Yeah, we won't blame you for that, Godfrey.
That's
We'll
okay. God speaks through the jawbone of an ass.
So, and by the way, I've also noticed in this film, you know, shots from Koyaanisqatsi, and the gorilla from Visitors, and the monkey with the VR headset. So there is
We were sampling older work. Yeah.
yeah. So there's
All except for a few shots were from the other films we did. If you put a different frame around the image, it has a different point of view. So
Actually, the monkey in this film, it's an interesting story about that. The beginning, Godfrey kept talking about, we got to get Lola in this film. Lola, the monkey. We had an ape in a gorilla in Visitors, right? That was a main character. But in this one, he said, we got to get Lola. And we were all like, who's Lola? So he said, yeah, I shot this footage for Koyaanisqatsi of a monkey, and we never used it. And I was like, oh, here we go. We're going to get this monkey. We're wearing VR glasses before VR. Okay, so anyway, this footage shows up. Perfect blue screen footage of this monkey on a bar with VR goggles. Before VR goggles were invented, Godfrey's friend, our friend, Jeffrey Liu, designed those things because he's thinking like, oh, this might be what they look like someday. This was in what year? 1978?
yeah.
Anyway, we took that footage, and that's the monkey that's in this film from outtakes of Koyaanisqatsi.
That's amazing. And by the way, the elephant in the room, how did you get Mike Tyson?
You got go watch the making of. If anyone has any questions about how the movie, like the specifics of all these questions and how the movie was made, the making of film is 20 minutes. It explains everything.
And I've watched that, and it's kind of like, it's not like Godfrey's saying there was a script, but Mike Tyson wasn't in the production schedule.
Originally, it was Eddie Murphy.
Let him make his own
Really?
decision.
True.
It was Eddie Murphy?
Godfrey wanted Eddie Murphy.
But then Mike showed the opportunity.
Well, he changed his mind. And one day, pictures of Mike Tyson started showing up on the walls of the studio for whatever reason. You see how Godfrey likes to have a lot of things around. Well, he turned one of the rooms in our studio into the similar looking crypt of things. And he kept saying, Mike Tyson, we got to get Mike Tyson in there. He's going to be the guy at the end, the mentor who leads the children to the light. And we just thought it was going to, go away. And one day, a Sunday, I get a phone call, and as Godfrey said, John, we're gonna have dinner with Mike Tyson in Manhattan tonight. I was like, a little busy here, doing a family event, whatever. Are you sure it's really? He said, yeah, we got to go. I'm like, all right. I thought for sure we're gonna get there. It's gonna be not Mike Tyson, but a Mike Tyson handler or somebody peripherally involved. We showed up, and there's Mike Tyson. And we had dinner with him and sat across from Godfrey, and Godfrey laid all this stuff on him, and Mike's just sitting there. And anyway, when we left there, again, this story is in the making of, but I thought, there is no way Mike Tyson is going to be in our movie. 2 weeks later, he called up. He said, I'd love to do it. And he showed up, and he was great. And Godfrey will tell ask Godfrey why he wanted Mike Tyson.
Godfrey, why did you want?
Tell us why we wanted
Tyson?
Mike Tyson.
Well,
very politically incorrect choice.
Yeah, here's the thing. Spike Lee, who's not known to be bashful, had him on an off-Broadway play, an interview with Mike Tyson. And Spike Lee could hardly get a word in edgewise because Mike Tyson doesn't say, he never misses a beat. He's so intelligent. He knows things that most people will never know. Never. And but he's a felon, so they don't give him any credit. There are more babies named after Mike Tyson than any other sports figure. He's better known than Jesus, Muhammad, everybody.
Has anyone here seen the Mike Tyson one-man show? Seen it? Well, if you see that show, you'll understand why he was chosen. He's nobody really knows Mike Tyson just from watching him as a boxer. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's very self-aware and self-deprecating, and he was absolutely perfect with the kids and the whole thing with this. So it ended up being a great choice.
And Godfrey, what was the most difficult part of making this film?
Oh dear.
Getting the money.
Well, the money came. Soderbergh said, "Here, I'll give you $2.5 million." And I said, "No, thank you. I need 6," because we were going to do an IMAX, or 7.
Well, first it was 14.
14. It was a lot of money. So I thought about it, and I remember having done a campaign for the American Civil Liberties Union here in New Mexico, where everything was shot, and it had a huge, huge impact. So I said, "I'll take the money." And then we needed a little more. So Alexander Rodanovsky, the Russian producer, the best in Moscow, put up the rest, but he couldn't get his money out because of what's going on. So Stephen fronted it for him.
There's a whole story there. Yeah. That's another thing. We got money from an awesome Russian. He's like the Francis Ford Coppola of Russia. And but all the good creative money in Russia is tied up with the oligarch money. And it was, literally, it's another thing. As soon as we got that money to finish, like the next day is when everything blew up in Russia about the oligarchs, and they took away all their yachts and their stuff and their things.
Yeah.
And like unbelievable. So that money was sort of frozen, shall we say, for a moment. But yeah, getting the money was, getting the original money was very difficult. Soderbergh's like, here's some change. What can you do? I said, all right, we'll make it short and we'll do it in this room. That's how it worked. Yeah.
And Jon, what was the most challenging technical aspect of the project?
Challenging technical aspect. The whole thing was really everything. These ideas would come up, and it's like, how are we gonna do that? For example, the horse, the Trojan horse, is a good example. Godfrey kept saying this Trojan horse comes in, this giant horse. It's covered with electronics, and children are gonna come out, and you're like, really? All right. And another one of those ones was like, maybe this will go away. But it's almost out of frustration and a little bit out of just like anger. In the meeting when he kept talking about the Trojan horse and we got to do this, I went on Amazon and bought a Trojan horse toy. It's a balsa wood toy. And we were lucky enough, we did this whole film during the pandemic, like the heat of the pandemic. And Broadway was closed. And I've done a lot of work with Broadway. So all their set designers, all those great set designers were available. And the way they do Broadway shows is they build everything in miniature first, and then they build the real thing. But the miniatures are amazing. I always seen many of them. So maybe we can get one of these guys to make this balsa wood thing into something awesome. And he did. And then we had Scott Pask and his team do all the stuff. But at the end of the day, we never knew if anything was going to work, like at all. So, Trojan horse, we get the thing, and we're like, all right, give to these guys. It comes back. It's like a masterpiece. This is like a museum quality thing, this big. Throw some lights on it, and it worked. The hardest thing was just that, really overall, was that Godfrey is a fountain of ideas, and when you're doing this kind of work, you have to lock a shot at some point so you can build it, and hundreds of layers of things going on. So the hardest thing was locking shots and being done with the shot and moving on to the next shot. It was a moving target all the time.
And then the costumes were a whole undertaking by themselves, like the costume design in the film.
Well, there was no discussion of costumes. at all until we got up to, it's time to shoot. And there are these characters. So what are we going to do? And one of the guys in the crew suggested this guy whose name is Machine Dazzle. That is his actual name. You call him Machine, or Machine Dazzle if you're using his first and last name. Very, very kind of well-known guy in the Broadway Taylor Mack, sort of queer, spectacular realm of things. And Mara's like, we're never going to be able to afford Machine Dazzle. And again, it was another one of these things. He's like, Machine Dazzle showed up and he was totally into it. And he was amazing. He made all those costumes from scratch by hand. The apple, Mike Tyson's thing. It was a big endeavor, making the costumes.
So when you got everybody together into actual production, how long did it take?
The whole thing was 16 months from the beginning to the end. The first couple of months, it was just, I'd say the first 5 weeks was listening. Every morning we had a morning meeting. Godfrey would talk about things and about the film and about stuff. At a certain point, I started a list of things we should test. Like he would say, the third act is called House on Fire. I'm like, all right, fire. Let's figure out how you do miniature fire. It's tricky. It's like miniature water to make it look big. Anyway, so we would do tests, and the tests would turn into other, sort of refinements of his ideas. So there was a big testing process, and of course we have to work up to the time where the live action is going to happen, because then we have to know exactly what we're doing, because people have to do certain things. The whole process, there was shooting, testing. We shot 190 days, shot almost every. And then the editing got more intense, and the editing and the music and the production sort of overlapped in there for a minute. So 16 months beginning to end. Yeah.
I mean, that's both long and short.
Very short, actually.
Yeah.
Because we started with, everything in terms of Godfrey's basic ideas and the format of the film and the themes and all the pillar ideas, but we also started with absolutely nothing. We had nothing planned or shot, because we couldn't plan anything or shoot anything because we didn't know any specifics yet. So we had to work those out. It was a real celebration of the process, the creative process, informing what we should do next. 100%.
And
Well,
when there's like,
let me say this.
Sorry?
What came before that was the form of the film. In art, all meaning is in the form. Octavio Paz. So the form had a beginning and an end, like bookends. As I said, all endings lie in beginnings, so you'll see how that ends. But then it had the House on Fire, which is movement one. Then we had Earth, Air, Water, Fire, Money, the Molotov cocktail that explodes. And then we had Time Will Tell, which is that big hourglass and all of that. So this is their orthodox text. This is taking the orthodox stories that we tell ourselves and making them heterodox, turning them to another path.
Yeah, the roadmap was always there. It's written like a symphony. There's a prologue, 3 acts, and an epilogue. So we knew how many parts there were to the film, and we thought we knew just budgetarily and time-wise how long the film should be. So we divide it down. It's like, all right, this act is going to be between 5 and 7 minutes, and it's going to be about these themes. And then the specifics, filling in all the specifics, would come up in the process of discussing and testing and debating various things. So it just sort of, Godfrey had the basic structure from the beginning.
and,
It didn't change.
And sync sound, or what looks like sync sound in this, did you record that sync or did you dub it afterwards?
Well, there's a bunch of instances. Of course, with Mike Tyson, he's got jazz horns coming out of his mouth, so that's separate. So Suzanne, we did like a music video. She sang the stuff and we played it back. We actually played it back. It was tricky because it's nonsense. She made a nonsense song that she then had to really remember because she's sort of in slow motion. So we had to play that song back at double speed. So she had to sing that song twice as fast in sync so that when we played a regular speed, she's in slow motion, but she's in sync. So that we did music video style. You know what I mean? Like she recorded it beforehand and then sunk back to it. What other sync sound is there? I mean, no, that hand clap, everything else was done later. We didn't record any sound.
Let me make a comment, please.
Yep.
As I was saying before, the image is constructed of the visual and the aural, the visual and the sound. Each one of those has 33 degrees if it were painting a paint, but it's in moving image. So you can't possibly see the whole film, but it sees you. So it's very layered. It's complexly beautiful.
And we've talked a lot about the mechanics of making it, but I wanted to go back again. Godfrey, the film ends like there seems to be a lot of optimism and hope there.
Yeah.
Is that something that, like, is that how you see?
Yes, I do. Let me
things?
explain. I didn't want a fairy tale. Fairy tales have moral lessons, but always has a happy ending. This is a bardic tale from the time of Homer and Heracles. A bardic tale, unlike a fairy tale, has a resolute beginning. So those that are courageous enough to be hopeless about this world can be hopeful about creating their own world. So that's the hope in this film. We're not trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together. Don't think it'll work. He fell off the wall. But we can begin something new. This is not the Lord of the Flies.
Is there anything else either of you would like to?
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, that would be best.
I just want to say the whole film is amazing, but what particularly struck me was the beginning with Suzanne and the way it was just designed like the tree and woven and the singing. It was just.
Yeah, Suzanne Dayam. She's amazing, amazing voice, and the casting there. Anyway, the assignment was we wanted to have this Mother Muse is her name, and she's summoning. It's called the clarion call. She's calling out to the world that there's a story that's going to be told, right? But we didn't want to use language. And Godfrey came upon this tape of her from way back. I had never heard of her. She's got many albums out. She's got an incredible voice, but she does this incredibly emotional singing, but she's not singing words. And, just perfect. And Machine Dazzle the idea was to have her, be like a tree and the roots are coming out. He made that all with garbage bags. And that's what it was. It was there on the floor, and then we put it into the forest thing. Yeah, he made that over a weekend. He was frustrated with this, that, and the other. And then finally he came in with a bunch of Glad bags and ripped them up and spray painted them with little gold and this, that, and the other. And suddenly this amazing thing. The thing on her head was a little heavy, too heavy for her at first. So that was a little trick. We had to hang that. But yeah, he really took that to another level, literally with garbage. Yeah.
How was Burgundy Street Blues chosen as sort of the outro music?
Okay, I'll tell you that.
Outro music?
The outro music?
The Burgundy Street Blues, yeah.
Yes, okay. Let me answer that. That's by John Lewis, one of my mentors. It was done in New Orleans in 1944 when I got thrown out of kindergarten at Robert E. Lee School. And my daddy taught me the boogie woogie and taught me the Burgundy Street Blues. And I would go to work with him. He, of course, worked in a bar, spoke Cajun. And that's how, that's how I wanted to have Lewis's film towards the end of our film. It would bring another atmosphere to it that was very real.
Thank you. It's a great song.
Yeah, we wanted sort of an up ending. Yes.
Hey, thank you. Can you speak to the character of the film that's inside of the apple, the character with the teeth on his head? Is that a kind of a serpent devil kind of thing, or is it something more positive? Because he seems to have a positive role at the end. He's leading the procession off the screen, but in the earlier parts, he seems very sinister. Can you just speak to
Well,
that?
he's the storyteller.
Talking about we're talking about the tooth man.
Right, John Flax. We had another very famous person, I'm not going to say who wanted to do that. And but as soon as he saw John Flax, his humor is written in his face. He wasn't trained as a clown. He was trained as a buffoon, one that pokes fun at those in power. So I thought he did a super job, and he lives in Santa Fe, but he's from New England.
His character is at first he's the guy at the carnival who's luring the kids in with this fun thing, right? The apple, and then later his true colors are revealed that he's on the side of the man. So that's why he's fun at first, and then later he appears a bit sinister. He's fooling the one of the twins, into enticing him with the apple.
So I think we've just enough time for one more question, if anyone has one. What's next, Godfrey? That's a very good question.
What's next? Well, I have two projects going right now. One is out, you can look it up, called The Original Badass. I did it with a woman, Samatani, from India, northern India. It's not something I would have done on my own, but it's something that I thought was well worth presenting. So I won't tell you what it is. You can look it up. The Original Badass, and that's out now. And then I'm doing a project with the Barrio gangs from 1960 to 2000 with PBS. And that's going to take probably a year to do. I'm the consigliere to Sam Labor, who's writing the script with Carlos Cervantes.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join with us today and for sharing this film.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for having us.
Okay, thank you.